Welcome back to State of the Nation Tonight with me, Matt Goodwin. Now, the United States Department for Government Efficiency, or DOGE as it's become known, headed by Elon Musk, has identified its latest target, which is the US Agency for International Development, or USAID. Not only has it been funding all sorts of diversity, equity and inclusion initiatives, often around the world, but it also turns out that it provided 8% of the BBC Media Action Charity's funding. But here in the UK, as I've said before on this show, we are spending £15.3 billion every year on foreign aid, while many British people are struggling to be treated in NHS hospitals, often being seen in corridors, and we're sending hundreds of millions of pounds to places like Afghanistan and beyond. Now, should we here be following Donald Trump's lead by slashing foreign aid? I'm joined now by my panel founder of Novara Media, Aaron Bastani, and political commentator Charlie Downs. Aaron, you look at the polling, over half of Brits say, actually, let's reduce spending on foreign aid, let's redirect it into the NHS, social care and so on. They've got a point, haven't they?
Well, Rachel Reeves would agree. I mean, they took a little bit of an axe to it last year. I don't know the US and the particulars of USAID, although the revelations are absolutely startling from what you can see on X.
Lots of woke projects in China and all these strange places.
Well, you can call it woke. We can park that for a moment. But there's also other stuff as well. Like, so, for instance, with regards to UK aid, I believe that we helped build a luxury 5-star hotel somewhere in South America. We have helped finance private healthcare clinics in India. We're a country with a public healthcare system, but we're subsidising private healthcare clinics in India. We've also helped subsidise, believe it or not, a cookware range in Kenya. A non-stick cookware range in Kenya.
Sounds essential to me.
Well, so these are things that, look, maybe we disagree on this. I think we should help the poorest countries in the world with regards to things like access to clean drinking water, early years care for children, child mortality, awful thing. There are millions of women out there in the world giving birth to kids in the dark, no access to electricity. We need to deal with that, but instead we're channeling money to things like luxury hotels and cookware ranges. That doesn't seem sensible to me, and actually I don't think anybody, 99.9% of the public would probably think that's not a useful way of directing resources.
Crikey, I think we're going to have some agreement. Charlie, I mean, fix Britain before helping the world. Is that a fair motto?
Well, I think if we have the means, then perhaps we should think about helping the poorer parts of the world. But the fact is we don't at the moment. You know, our country is suffering hugely. You know, there are plenty of people who are living in poverty and, you know, not getting by and just scraping by. And I think all the while that's the case, we can't be looking outwards. You know, there is this narrative, in fact, that has been used to talk about USAID of soft power, that it is an expression of soft power to help out places where there is poverty and so on. And I think that's just nonsense, because I think a lot of the time this money that we send as aid to these countries that are notoriously corrupt in a lot of cases just goes into the pockets of their elites. And I think that actually, if we wanted to get real about helping some of the most impoverished, struggling nations in the world, we might actually think more about more directly intervening in these places. You know, if we really want to see the livelihoods and the welfare of these people improve, you know, maybe there's a conversation to be had about going a little more direct with it. But if I could just bring our attention to something else about this story, which I think is very interesting, is the way in which USAID has funded media outlets across the world. They've trained, using USAID money, 6,200 independent journalists and 707 news outlets. 9 out of 10 outlets in Ukraine are directly funded by USAID. The New York Times and Politico, and indeed our very own BBC, have been funded by USAID. And the US government brags that they are now the largest contributor to independent media in the world. Now, if that's independent, I mean, I don't know what the word independent means. So the question we have to ask is, has Novara Media accepted money from USAID?
Great question. Very easy to answer. No.
Just on this USA point, though, there's a fascinating dynamic to this about the state, isn't there? I mean, Elon Musk has been saying that basically this is about peeling back the layers to find out where money has been going. And essentially a lot of people online saying, well, these funds have been used to essentially advance the quote-unquote deep state and the allies of the deep state. There is something here that it's not just about money, it's about the concentration of power.
100% agree. I mean, you talked about various media outlets being financed by USAID. There are people on X in this sphere, East Asian specialists, people with connections to the US State Department, saying, without USAID, then we can't have, you know, free and accountable and transparent media in China. And I'm thinking, you're a country with 40 million people on food stamps. like I say, there are millions of women out there in the world giving birth to children in the dark, and you think a legitimate use of US taxpayer money is funding media in China. Now, whatever you guys think of China, they've taken 700 million people out of poverty. And the whole point of USAID is taking people out of poverty. It is extraordinary to even think about. And I think even just exposing this with the slightest bit of accountability, I think will anger most people. I don't think that's a left-right thing. And I know there's going to be a lot of disagreement about aid generally. Should we or shouldn't we? That's fine. But my goodness, a lot of money is being wasted. And I think a lot of the money is being wasted on projects which actually don't need to be viewed ideologically or should polarise people. It's just a waste of taxpayer money.
I mean, I have said on this show before, you know, the fact that we are treating British people in hospital corridors and car parks, but we are suddenly finding 100 million via David Lammy to send to states in Africa and in the Middle East in the hope that it will stop migration upstream while failing to control our borders here. I mean, it's hard for people to digest that kind of stuff.
Well, let's look at migration.
Yep.
You remove Gaddafi. Gaddafi in Libya was really on top of this stuff. Or Afghanistan, Iraq, you're removing regimes, you're spending billions of pounds, and then you're saying, you know what, we're going to spend even more money to stop the migration flows. Doesn't make any sense.
No, well, I agree with you on that one. Now, thank you to my panel.